Good afternoon. I would like to call the February 4th meeting of Benton Harbor's Planning Commission to order.
Commissioner Adams,
Present.
Commissioner Archibald,
Present.
Commissioner Bell, Commissioner Henry, Commissioner Hensel, Commissioner Marshall, Manager Little,
Here.
Mayor Mohammed, Chairman Reed. You have a quorum.
If I could get y'all's attention, I'd like to have approval for the agenda. We have a motion for approval.
Motion to approve. Support.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Adams and supported by Commissioner Marshall. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Marshall,
Yes.
Manager Little,
Here.
yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Adams,
Yes.
Commissioner Archibald,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes.
Motion carried.
This time, I'd like to move to agenda item number 4, approval of the minutes for the December 3rd meeting. We did not have a January meeting, so are there any additions, corrections, deletions?
For December.
Yes, for the December meeting.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve made by Commissioner Adams, supported by Commissioner Archibald. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Marshall,
Yes.
Manager Little,
Yes.
Commissioner Adams,
Present. Yes.
Commissioner Archibald,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes.
Motion carried.
At this time, I'd like to open the meeting up for public comments. If you have any, please, 3 minutes will be allowed. Any public comments? Hearing none, I'll close this portion of the meeting and move on to item number 6 on our agenda, a presentation of the Ox Creek Habitat Restoration Plan. Do we have?
Hello, I'm Dane Rasmussen. I'm the Ox Creek Project Manager. And today we have a presentation on the Habitat Restoration Draft Plan. We have a representative from GEI, our consultant, Scott Dierks. And he'll be presenting the draft plan for the Habitat Restoration Pilot Program. This is a grant-funded project through NOAA, which is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. This pilot project is from, it's along Ox Creek from Highland to Britain. And he's got all sorts of maps that'll show you the layout. I just wanted to clarify, this is not an actionable item today for the council. We're just looking for some feedback, and there will be more opportunities towards the end of February and in March for more public input as well. So I'd like to have Scott come up. Take it away.
Thanks, Dane. Thanks, everybody. Great, awesome. We are connected. I just wanted to make sure we are connected. Just give me a second. Got a little PowerPoint. Okay. Hello. There we go. Great. Whoops. Appreciate the opportunity to be here to present on the plan. Again, my name is Scott with GEI Consultants. I'm a hydrologist and ecological engineer. Presentation outline. I'll just talk briefly about the background, project goals, issues and opportunities, the good and the bad, news, as I call it. And then I'm going to talk about the draft restoration plan. And as Dane said, it's from Highland to Britain. And then we are working on a conceptual restoration plan that goes from Britain to Napier. So we have a lot more detail for the pilot project, again, which is from Highland to Britain. And I'm just going to touch briefly on the rest of the conceptual plan as I go. And then I'll talk a little bit about cost and timeline for the pilot in the conceptual restoration plan. So as Dane started to talk about, this work, this has preceded our participation in this. We've started working on this in earnest last year, but there is the collaborative, Ox Creek Collaborative Partnership, which includes City of Benton Harbor, the township, the county, University of Michigan, NOAA, Southwest Michigan Planning Commission, Eagle, used to be DEQ, and there are other folks who are also involved in it, but I think I've hit the main. Oh, Audubon Marsh, the other engineering firm that's working on this as well. So it's a big group, a very collaborative group, and it's been a great opportunity for us to work with the group and to work in this project. All right, so I'm going to, just a little bit of review. I think maybe you've seen this before. This is goals for Ox Creek from the City of Benton Harbor. Essentially wanting to clean up the creek, right? So the creek's been the recipient of a lot of insults, if you want to think of it that way, over the years. And when I talk about insults and when I talk about the things that had happened to Ox Creek, I do not mean to single out Benton Harbor per se, because the kinds of things that have happened to Ox Creek have happened everywhere. So it's not just a Benton Harbor issue. We see this all the time. So there are sources of pollution on the creek or near the creek, industrial pollution, there's trash that's been dumped. And so the goals are to pay attention. Well, what I would say is kind of pay attention to the creek now, right? Clean it up, get rid of the trash, get rid of the contamination, and make it a place where you can actually get into the water, you can go canoeing or kayaking, and you can go fishing. So the vision, as expressed by the city of Benton Harbor, is to create this vibrant corridor, recreational corridor, a draw for citizens, a place for people to get down to the water, to educate, experience nature as it used to be, and potentially create this economic revitalization corridor, right? So people are coming down, they're being educated, and then along the corridor, potentially opening up economic opportunity as well. All right, so the bad news. I want to start with the bad news first, then go to the good news. As I said, so the creek has essentially been neglected or even abused for a long, long time. And again, not singling out Benton Harbor. This is everywhere. I work a lot around the Great Lakes. For whatever reason, this tends to happen, right? It's easy to not see what's, down into the valley and treat it that way. Long time ago, many, many decades ago, the creek was straightened and widened, right? So it was basically, there were flooding problems downtown. And so a lot of the work that was to try to mitigate that really just, I guess you'd say, changed the fundamental shape, changed the habitat for the worse, for the critters that lived in the creek. As I mentioned, you have manufacturing that was along the creek. There's some sources of contamination. There's been some dumping along the sides of the creek. And then what's also happened is the growth of a lot of invasive plants. There's one good example would be, it's a big reed. You see it a lot around here, a lot around the Great Lakes. It's called Phragmites. It can get 6 feet, 7 feet, 8 feet tall. It's got a big seed head at the top. They tend to take over in these kinds of environments. And I mean, the plant itself, not bad per se, but what ends up happening is it essentially, the habitat, the natural habitat that was there, and the food, because there are not many things that can eat that plant because it comes from Europe, made its way over here long, long time ago. Basically, you get rid of all the food that was there for the native creatures, the insects, the fish, and you start to change that habitat. You lose all those native inhabitants because you now have these invasive plants that are taking over. One thing I want to mention, the reach that we're working in, the pilot reach that we're working in, is a big part of it's right in front of Hall Park. And there's a lot of work going on in Hall Park right now, a lot of great work that's going on. One thing I want to mention, and I'll talk about this a little bit more as we go on, particularly with some of what we're planning. That area of the creek is very flat, right? So what I mean by that is streams need slope. They need, to move water. And the other thing that streams do naturally is move sediment. And the creek in that area is flat. So there's not a lot of energy to move water and sediment. And then the other thing that happens there is when the winds blow from the west across the lake, they will literally push the water, and they will push the water upstream. And that area right in front of Hall Park receives those backflows, we call them. And so what ends up happening is that area right in front of Hall Park has a lot of really fine sediment, like clays and silts. So it's very hard to walk back there. You'll literally sink in to your knees or even to your waist. And it's a very difficult problem for us to manage. And I'll talk about it a little as we go. Okay, that's very, very quick bad news. I'm going to try to go to the good news because there are good news for this creek. The first thing I want to mention is, and I'm going to jump ahead real quick while I talk about this. So this is a hydraulic model. It's a model that shows how high the water gets when you have various storm events. And that blue area represents the water level at the 100-year flow, right? So very rare event, although it may be happening more frequently these days. So we have modeled, and those green lines represent the places where the model does its calculations. And what you see, it's a little bit tricky, but that area where the blue is, that's all Creek Valley, right? So the one great thing about the creek is because it has a kind of the sides of the creek, particularly in this reach, are relatively steep. Not much at all has been built within the valley of the creek. So, and I'm not talking about downtown by the lake. That's different. That's not part of our project. And I know there are other issues there. But within the valley that we're working, the good news is there are almost no structures built there. And when you get big flows, very little is threatened, if anything, by those big flows because of the shape and the height of those valley walls. So that actually that's a bonus. That's a real bonus. So you can continue to develop around the creek as long as you don't get down into the valley walls. And again, there's a trail planned for the west side. It's something that can go down low. Recreational facilities, you can go down low, but structures like houses and businesses and things, you don't want to build in there. So you've got a really good foundation for the creek and into the future. It's kind of hard to see, but that little picture there, you'll notice there's a kind of orange-brown discharge, if you will, a little bit of orange-brown water that's coming through that vegetation. That is a sign that we have groundwater, which is, again, really good news. We found a lot of places where groundwater is seeping into the creek. So even though the Eagle defines this as a warm water creek, right? So it's not a cold water creek. It's not a trout creek per se, but it gets a lot of groundwater, which means it's still relatively healthy, right? So there may be these contaminants, there may be garbage and things like that, but in terms of natural function, there's still water coming in the way water was supposed to come in instead of running off parking lots, which It does in some places, but you also have groundwater, which again, really good news. Other things that are happening, like, I've already mentioned the trail design that's going on the west side, which will bring people down to the creek. And again, as long as most of that valley is left undeveloped, then anything that gets built around the valley is, in a sense, I won't say protected forever, but much better chance that nothing will get outside the valley walls as long as you keep that function, that floodplain function inside the valley. Um, there's a great, it'll be, that's the kind of best condition you could leave that valley into the future. And then lastly, you're probably aware there's been a lot of grant applications, a lot of funding that's coming in to Benton Harbor, and hopefully that continues over the next couple of years. It seems that the last couple of years have been very hopeful. There's been a lot of attention and funding that's coming into Benton Harbor. A lot of different things going on, and I'm not going to try to go over all those. I'm just going to stick to our little piece. All right, so now I'm going to get into the restoration plan. And like I said, I'm going to focus on the pilot project from Highland to Britain. And we have a set of drawings that I'd be happy to distribute. I don't have hard copy with me, but we can distribute them electronically if you want to see them. So I'm just going to do kind of the highlights. So first thing is contamination and debris cleanup. You're probably aware there were railroad tracks on both sides of the creek for decades and decades. Both sides. I mean, they didn't go all the way up and down both sides. There's actually a set of bridges. There were tracks on the west and there were tracks on the east, and there are multiple crossings that brought the railroad over the creek. And then Valley Drive, like, I don't remember last time I saw Valley Drive literally ran along the top of the bank. And one of the things that we have found that we're going to be taking out is it looks like the old road was essentially demolished in place and then I guess used to kind of berm up the east side of the creek. So we're going to be taking that out. One other thing I want to mention is wood. So you see the picture there? You got wood in the creek. And one thing about natural areas that's really important is habitat diversity. The more diverse the habitat, the more diverse the inhabitants. And one of the general goals that we try to do when we do restoration work is diversify the habitat, right? You diversify the habitat, you bring the native plants back, and then, you've heard the old expression, if you build it, they will come. That's kind of how we treat our restoration work. We try to restore that old habitat. We try to create habitat diversity to bring back the insects, to bring back the fish, to bring back the birds, to bring back the mammals, to bring back the diversity of wildlife that used to be there. That's, in a sense, waiting for this work to happen. So, in order to make the creek accessible so you can get small boats up, one of our plans is to essentially clean out that wood. And when I say that, I don't mean we're going to take it all out, because the wood along the creek and strategically placed near the creek creates a lot of habitat variability. It will change the creek bed itself. In some places you get a little bit of scour. You actually want the creek bed to have a lot of variability for the different kind of bugs that you want to live there. And if you have those different kind of bugs, then you get a range of fish that are going to come back up the creek. So we're going to cut out the wood that spans the creek, but we're actually going to strategically place wood along the creek in order to create some of that bed variability to attract the kinds of bugs and fish we're hoping to attract. And then lastly, invasive species. So invasive species, we're developing an invasive species control plan. Those are things like buckthorn and honeysuckle and the Phragmites, like I mentioned. What ends up happening is because they came from elsewhere, whether it was they came from Asia or whether it came from Europe, they tend not to have anything that either eats them, and they tend not to have any enemies, so to speak. So they just take over landscapes. And again, what you lose is variety. You want variety. You want diversity. You want natural diversity. That's what also makes for a sustainable landscape. So we're working on invasive species control plan and restoration planting plan to bring back those native plant species. All right. So I'll try to get through this real quickly. This is the reach, so you can see on the upper left-hand corner, that's Highland Ave, and then to the bottom right there is Britain, is the bridge over the creek, and those dark, those are actually lines on either side of that valley. They look a little bit like shading, but they're actually individual topographic lines. So it's each line represents 1 foot in elevation gain. So you can see you have wide open floodplain, and then the valley walls go steeply up. And then these black outlines here, I don't know if you can see you can't really see my cursor. Those black outlines represent debris, and it's mostly concrete. It's mostly broken up concrete. In fact, I got a picture here. You can see on the top there that, again, I think it's old roadbed. There may be some old railroad bed too, although on this reach, I think the tracks were on the other side. Anyway, there's those black patches represent those debris piles all the way. It's about 3,000 feet from bridge to bridge, and there's debris all the way, and we're going to take it all out. In that bottom image of our plan set, it's kind of hard to make out, but there are hatched areas. Those hatched areas represent the areas where we will be excavating that material out. The individual numbers, the numbers themselves don't matter, just the fact that you can see that they're numbered. Those are individual trees. So the trees have grown up within the debris piles, and for better or for worse, in order to get the piles, we take the trees. So we don't like cutting trees, but right now we have a plan where we're going to be planting several thousand trees back. So we're going to be taking out about 95 trees, and we're going to be putting back several thousand trees. So that's the deal, if you will. Down here in that inset box, those represent 2 old railroad bridges. That's where, let's see, right. So the railroad, I can't remember. I think it was on the other side. It crosses over to the west side. It was on the east side. It crosses over to the west side. We'll be taking those bridges out. We don't have old plans because the bridges probably went in somewhere at the beginning of the 20th century, but this is essentially what they look like. You can see that's a picture of one of the bridges right there. You can see the supports and then the retaining walls, all wood. I think it's all creosote covered wood. So creosote is a coating that basically keeps the wood from rotting, even though the wood is starting to rot. Yeah. Well, no, Britain. That's right at Britain. Sorry. Yeah, it's there's the Britain Bridge right there. Well, on the Empire side. There are some other bridges upstream to the south that we'll also be taking out, but I'm not focusing on those today. Just what we're doing in this reach. But yeah. There are some like this, and then there's some old concrete bridges too that will be taken out as part of the larger project. So those will be coming out. We'll be regrading it. You can see the new grade lines there, and that's actually a cross section. It's a little bit hard to see, but we'll be essentially getting that back to a stable angle, planting with native plants, making sure that it doesn't erode. We'll be using an erosion control blanket, that kind of thing. Um, and then those blobs are invasive species. Yeah, it's now there's not an invasive species everywhere where those blobs are. Those are blobs. Those are, I guess you call them kind of like planning blobs. We know that where we're going to focus the invasive species control work is within the blobs, but not everything in there is invasive. So there's a lot of woody stuff, like I said, like buckthorn is an example. So the buckthorn grows up amongst other species, and so the invasive control work is very targeted just to those species. A lot of the work is handwork, right? So it's not going in and spraying everything, it's going in, cutting, and then treating the places where you cut so it won't grow again. So there's a lot of work associated with that and a lot of work upstream that'll have to take place as well. And this is what I had mentioned earlier about cutting the wood. So you can see the big debris jam in this particular river on the left-hand side, and then on the right-hand side, you're just cutting out what you need to cut out. So the wood stays, it continues to provide habitat and food because there are insects, macroinvertebrates that eat the wood actually, and the what comes off that over time. And then we will be, as I said, we will be placing wood adjacent to the stream. So those little dark symbols represent basically what we cut down, we're going to reuse. And what we're going to do on that far left hand side, on the bottom of the stream, which is actually the west side of the stream, because the stream, we've oriented it now from west to east, but it runs from south to north. But we flipped it just to get it on the sheet. We're going to put that wood there, and the reason we're going to put the wood there, both from a habitat perspective, but also one of the things we cannot do per permits, per permitting with the state, we can't fill, it's all wetland on the south side. We can't go in and fill that wetland. And so when the water comes in, a lot of that energy that we want to move that soft sediment gets dissipated in the wetland. And so we're going to use wood strategically to try to push the water into the main channel so we get more sediment movement, but we also can get a permit.
But we can water the bed. Because it's like a filter.
Yeah, no. And in fact, so that wetland is all invasive.
It will remain.
Well, we're going to replant it. So to try to get that native habitat. So there's a lot of work associated with that. And again, we're trying to do it in a way that makes sense habitat wise, but also in a way that we can get our permits and we can do it the way Eagle wants it to be done. So again, these blobs now represent what we're going to put back. And I'm not going to go through all this, but these are mostly trees. So red maple, hackberry, black gum, sycamore, swamp white oak, pin oak, chokecherry, dogwood, winterberry, nine bark, big list. And then there's also herbaceous species we'll be putting back too. So a lot of stuff will be going back. There'll be a lot of effort put back into these. And then the other thing I'll say is, we've been working with the county. We've been working with groups that locally who will be taking care of this landscape after the construction is done. So it's not just about getting in, doing the work, and leaving. It's about going in, doing the work. Exactly. And people are getting paid to help take care of the landscape and make it sustainable. So we're working on long-term plans. So that's the construction that we're hoping will take place at the end of this year, and then we're working on a larger, just 2 slides, the conceptual restoration plan, which will be very much like what you've seen, but we haven't worked out the concepts yet. Right? So I've split the reach. So there you're looking at Britain to Empire, I believe, and then Empire to Napier. And so we're working on a larger plan for those. And that won't be the same amount of detail. It'll just be a conceptual restoration plan for planning purposes to think about if we take what we've done from Highland to Britain and we move it all the way up, what might that look like? So that's what we're working on right now. And those elements very much like the elements that we're talking about doing towards the end of this year, right? So cleaning up the trash, invasive species control, trying to reestablish native plants, getting, in some cases, we may be doing some of the work with stormwater outfalls, basically catching some of the water so it doesn't erode the banks. And then we're working with, although we're not designing it, we're working with the trail design that's also happening and making sure that what we do makes sense within the trail work that's planned. All right, so cost and timeline. The work that I showed you in the plans, that's about a little over $1 million. And I don't actually think we're going to be doing all that work because the invasive species control work will probably take a couple of years. But that's the cost to do all of it right now. And then if you essentially double that, that roughly would be what we would be talking about from Britain to Napier. And so the pilot project, we'll be submitting for permits here very soon, and then expect a good part of the year to get those permits, so that we would potentially be in the field doing the work, probably fall, starting with getting rid of the debris, creating construction access, cutting the trees, and then finishing the restoration piece in the spring of 2026. Yes. Yeah. Very little, I should say. Not above the valley, but the valley itself, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Right. I can't remember what it was called though. Texas, right. Right. Yeah.
So there's still a possibility that could be revived in some way.
Yeah. And I'm not saying you can't do it. So there's two issues with that. One is just understanding where it is in relation to those potential flood levels, and then the second is getting a permit. So you can get a permit when you build in the floodplain, but you have to offset any impacts so the water surface in order to do it. So I'm not saying you can't do it. Alex and I have talked, I think, a little bit about this, that there may be some work that happens within that valley. And again, it can be accommodated, but it has to be done, per all the rules and regulations.
Yes, I heard you say a lot, and I'm glad that we're going to be revisiting this again. And I'm just glad that anything is happening, because I, as a kid, grew up on Riverside, and I see how that has just, we even lost a childhood friend that drowned there, but how the water just expanded. And I see the same thing happening here at Ox Creek. And just like the question you just asked, if something is not done now, the same thing will expand out down in the valley. As a child growing up, I sat up on those steps and watched the House of Davis and play ball late at night, and it was very lit. It was beautiful, and I'm hoping that our children behind us get to enjoy those very things. However, my question is, the Drain Commission was given the right-of-way for easements and to help to clean up. And the county has been getting funds over the years, and I don't hear them actually contributing.
They're actually a part of the collaborative.
Funding?
Yeah, I think so. They just changed the drain commissioner just
Okay, but
newly voted in.
we have been applying for funds over the year, and we finally got some funds to do what you've spoken of. Has the county themselves, as the Drain Commission, and the county commissioners put forth funding towards this endeavor?
I don't know if they have to date, but I believe they
Okay.
will be.
Okay.
And the other thing is the drain code was recently changed, so they can actually
Do more?
do a little bit more.
Do more, okay. Okay. Does that include the expansion like out Ox Creek out to Jefferson, to the hill there, and I'm asking for a reason because there's like a, right there where the railroad depot was, there's like a retainer-like type of wall. Can we take that further and bring that up some more? Because I think it would make nice space for concerts and stuff like that. Just something to think about later. Thank you.
That would be outside of the scope of this project, but it's
In the future, yeah.
mind, yes.
Okay, if there are no more questions, I'd like to move along with everybody.
I know. Sorry, I didn't mean to take all that time.
Sorry.
Okay, I won't take long. I see one of my Rotarian members is in here, Marcy Hamilton, so any questions I may have, I'm sure she can answer them for me. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Excellent presentation. I'd like to direct your attention to item number 7 on our agenda. We have a site plan review for Champions Way for a golf course. Outdoor patio, snack beverage concessions, windows. Have someone here like to make this presentation, but, we'd like to hear the staff report first.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is, as you can tell from the little proposal I put together, it's 4.1 acres, just a little over. It's going to be like a small par 3 course, similar to what Pipestone Creek course has. It's going to be down on Graham Street. There is a little bit of lighting proposed. It fits the narrative, it fits the surrounding. It's going to be the addition of 2 buildings. One's going to be a villa, the other one's going to be for the snack center. I see no reason that this won't fit in to the surrounding environment without any adverse effects.
Are there any environmental impacts?
So there was Eagle permitting applied for, and if you don't mind, I will turn that over to Mr. Cook to explain that to you folks, if you'd like to hear.
But where is there a creek, a Pipestone Creek? Where is,
Golf course, Pipestone Creek Golf Course on Britain, they have a small par 3. This week course is going to be similar to that.
I think it's actually Blossom
Or,
Trails.
sorry, Blossom Trails, not Pipestone Creek. You're right, I got them confused. Blossom Trails on Britain. Sorry about that. No, you're right.
Thank you, Commissioners. I do have my computer. If we need to pull up the plan on the screen, we can do that. Okay. First question, though, is related to these permits. We had what's called a preliminary permit review on site. And in that process, Eagle comes out and looks at the site with us. We tell them what we're thinking about doing, and they give us an opinion of the permits that may be needed, and the kind of, to some degree, the viability of our plan. At that time, Eagle suggested that there are 3 wetlands on the site, and that those wetlands would be likely regulated, and in large part due to the fact that there are wetlands across Graham Avenue from our site. We have since, meeting with them, decided that our original intent to dig out those wetlands and, in our opinion, enhance them, we're going to leave them alone. So there's no need for a permit. We're going to create our own wetland area that will be planted with wetland plantings and drain the course into that area, which we can do. And so that's our current intent. Yes?
where are we? And I have a better picture of
Sure, I'll do that. Now, I've plugged in, but I'm not getting a screen,
You
so.
know where the driving range is for Harbor Shores right now, on Hager Shore Road, across from the Modern Plastics.
Right.
So this is just south, if you go down Graham Street,
Okay.
it's just on the south side.
Okay,
It's
go
those,
green, okay.
yeah, where there's
Hill.
four, I think there's three villas right now?
Four.
Four villas right
Okay,
now.
I'm
They're gonna
there.
add one villa
I'm
and then
there.
put in this, there's like a 4-acre parcel right in front of those villas.
I'm there,
Then
okay.
This is where they're gonna,
Yeah.
Go ahead and just put the board up. So for some reason, my connection is not showing there, but Kathy will put the board up in case we have questions about that. So now you're oriented. The wetlands on the site, I would put in quotes. They're like, when it rains, there's a little puddle. It's not like there's all this nice, beautiful growth and birds and bees and stuff. Hey, we're in business. Thank you. So those wetlands are located, you can see right here, these 3, 4 spots. And here's where we're going to, if you can see my cursor, here's where we're going to basically enhance or create some, what I would call real quality wetlands. These are just grasses right here.
Where are the buildings?
And so the buildings are right up here,
Oh, okay.
1, 2, 3, 4 golf villas, and then the clubhouse is over here to the right, just off the screen.
Okay, so those wetlands, are you across the street?
no.
No?
Nope, so Graham Avenue is right here.
So I know there's some very heavy flooding that happens.
It's literally when it rains.
Yeah.
The pictures that I took, that I supplied, you can see some little depressions in the ground. Those are what he's showing up there is supposed wetland.
Yep, puddles, I would call them.
Puddles, right.
So the goal is to get the children a place.
Yes, so that's perfect segue into what I really want to talk about, which is the fact that we're excited about this being a new amenity for the community. It'd be located at Harbor Shores, and we think it's going to enhance the value of Harbor Shores to more members of the community. So it's going to be a great place for families to spend time together. Kids will play for free if they have an adult with them. We're going to offer programming in collaboration with the schools and First Tee, youth organizations. This is going to be a place to play a quick round of golf in an hour or less compared to 5 on the big course. It'll be incorporated into our trail system, which runs throughout Harbor Shores, and also connects very nearby to the new plaza that's under construction right next to Emma Jean Hall Flats. It's a much less intimidating way to learn how to play golf. Short holes that are 30, 40, 50 yards long that you could actually putt your way around if you wanted to, feel a lot better than the big course if you're just learning the game. So we want this to be an introduction to golf for a lot of people, kids, families, etc. It's going to be a much less expensive way to also get introduced and play golf with 9 holes that are patterned after the real holes on the course. So there'll be little mini versions of the big holes, which will be cool. It's another example of investment in the community by the Whirlpool Foundation. It's also strongly supported by Corewell for the health benefits that it will provide. And it will be have space for group events. So if a company or a youth group or whatever wants to come out and use the space, they can. They can either play golf on the 9 short holes or just use the putting green. So every year there's a big event at the golf course that raises money for the local community, schools, First Tee, Boys and Girls Club, etc. This past year it raised $3.2 million for those organizations. A number of the people that come to play or want to play in that event play once a year. You're going to put me on that big course and I can hardly hit the ball? Doesn't sound like fun. But this, we would get more people to come to that event and spend their money for the community that want to do this instead of the big deal. So we think that has huge potential and opportunity as well for those non-golfers. So We would like construction to begin as soon as possible. If you were to approve this, then we're ready to submit for those permits soon, if not tomorrow, to get those in motion. And then we would be able to move ahead with construction as soon as those permits are received. We think the permits are going to be nationwide simple permits based upon the lack of impact that we're going to have on any existing wetlands or floodplain. We have introduced and asked a former senior PGA champion to help with the design of the course. So Colin Montgomery has his name on this. He was a champion here. He's an international famous golfer. And thanks to him, we've been able to work with his team to fine tune this, and it will be built by golf course experts. We'll also have the putting green, as I mentioned, and then this outdoor space. So we'll be able to serve refreshments, and you'll be able to rent, or if your child, get a putter and a wedge and go out and play. Lots of room to kind of hang out here and enjoy the outside, both on the pavement, and the whole area is going to be beautifully landscaped, or on some some artificial turf, tables and fire pits out here. And then in the wintertime, we're expecting to flood the parking lot and allow ice skating. So you could four-season use of this, skating as weather allows. We all know that's an issue, but better than nothing. We could flood the parking lot, and then you can hang out by the fire pit. That's what I would do, watch the kids skate, because I'm wobbly on skates. But I know some people will enjoy that. Again, kids play for free. And again, all this funded by Whirlpool Foundation, thanks to them, Corewell, the Fedig Family Foundation also, and other donations. So the total cost of this is $3 million. Contributes to property taxes, one more unit, one more group paying city income tax, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's some tremendous benefits. From a planning perspective, I think as Mr. Bennett indicated, it's zoned for this. It's in the mixed-use district, which is intended to encourage a diversity of land uses, including residential, commercial, and recreational, which we're doing. They're all allowed. One question maybe, why not more housing here? We are putting housing where we can. The soils up on the north side of the parcel where those current units are located is the best spot. Even those are difficult to construct. We need piles and special foundations because the soils are not great. The floodplains and wetlands make any development of housing to the south even more of a challenge. For 15 years, we've been looking to try to develop housing here and just have not been able to make it work. We think this is the best option for it. And one, frankly, that I'm excited that we're able to do. 100% public. This fits within the vision of the master plan, which says that the cities should look to provide improvements in parks and open space, public amenities, outdoor recreational opportunities for residents year-round. Master plan also emphasizes supporting existing community facilities and service providers in their efforts to provide high-quality, affordable opportunities for residents. This will be very affordable. So, in summary, we look forward to providing this amenity to the public that will allow kids to play for free, allow that charity event, more opportunity to raise funds for local groups like the schools, the First Tee, Boys and Girls Club, robotics, etc. We're excited. We hope that you are too, and that you'll approve this. But certainly, for now, I'm open to any questions that you all might have.
Thank you, Chris. And thank you, Chairman. Would you, okay. I'm sure this has been a long time coming, and it was part of the original plan. Maybe there's been some add-ons. But again, I can't sit and complain and listen to the complaints in the community about there's nothing to do, nothing for the children to do, when this is their community and it's open up for all. And it's not so much as, I wish that skating rink could be there, but because we can have more than one.
Yes.
To service the community as a whole, and I'm glad that we would have choices if another one was to come about. As long as it's adding to the tax base and it's connecting to the already contract with the city of Benton Harbor and Harbor Shores, and it's just beneficial in so many ways. And I really appreciate that, because I'm tired of listening to the complaints in my community about nothing to do when we go to other communities and spend our money, when we are working hard at trying to continue to build Benton Harbor, to be that place of placement where people would love to visit and stuff. We got a long ways to go, but we've made some strides. And all of us up here, including yourself, Chris, we've come through a lot. I mean, a lot. And I can see the growth. And everybody else can see it too. It's undeniable. And it's added to our tax base. Maybe some of the businesses were not some that were wanted, but they have been a grave help. And things just change along life's way. Things take different directions. But I'm looking forward to this, as long as everything is in compliance and we're not messing with our natural filters, such as our wetlands. And I'm just, thank you.
Thank you. And to your point, we want this to be an inspiration for other things like this that can happen in the community. Look, we built this, they came from the prior presentation, and so we can do more. And we're looking for opportunities to do more and, welcome input on what those might be.
That last part you just said, we're going to hold you to it.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, I just want to say, first of all, I'm a golfer, and I've been golfing for about 40 years. I really started playing out at Blossom Trail, which has the 9-hole course you're talking about, and I've saw the difference that it makes. Right now, they have the first tee out there, and it's packed 2 or 3 days a week. So it's a great opportunity, and not only for the kids. You'll be surprised how many adults would like to learn how to play golf, and they are intimidated by playing such a big course. Harbor Shores is an extremely, intimidating course if you're not a golfer, and it takes a while to play. So just to see what this can do for our kids, for different programs to get started and stuff, I just think this is excellent. This is something that we've been needed. So from my standpoint, I see nothing but support.
What I'm about to say may be shocking, but it's the truth. Without my leadership, there never would have been a Harbor Shores. At one while, I was a city commissioner. I looked at Harbor Shores on paper and understood clearly what it was. My support for this program cost me my seat as a commissioner. But the good thing about it, everything I saw on paper, I see it in reality today.
I think it was a lot about the benefit of Benton Harbor.
Are there any external impediments that would prevent you from moving forward on this?
No, I mentioned the need for permits. Your approval of the plan would not supersede the need for those permits. Actually, the permit agencies like to know that the locals have said yes. So it is proper that we would go to you first, them next. Without their approval, we don't go. So even with your approval, without theirs, we don't go. So that's our next step. And then we're ready to roll.
And all of that should be turned in for any of the building permits?
Yes.
All copies of that will be provided with building permit applications.
That's another thing, yep.
So you're recommending that we move forward with this?
I recommend the planning commission's votes how they feel they need to vote on this.
Thank you, sir. Are we ready to?
Make a motion to approve, to move it forward to the
Made by
full body.
Commissioner Adams and supported by Commissioner Marshall. Call for the vote then. This is a discussion. Call.
Manager Little,
Aye.
Commissioner Adams,
Aye.
Commissioner Archibald? Yes. Commissioner Marshall? Chairman Reed? Motion carried.
Thank you all. Appreciate that.
We'll move to item number 8, old business, zoning ordinance update.
Well, just, we are moving along. I'd like to introduce the gentleman that's replacing, among other things.
Good afternoon. So my name is Brad Meisner, and I am a senior principal planner with McKenna. And I know that you all have been working with Paul Lippens in the past on the city's zoning ordinance update. So I'm newly with the company. I joined in December, and I will be stepping in for him to work with you all and with the community. I'm making sure that your zoning ordinance is reflective of what it is that you need to do, and also to make sure that your master plan is a policy document that's going to come alive through your rules and regulations. Recently, we sent over the latest draft, and so today, if there's any feedback for me, any critical items, anything that you're seeing that we need to continue paying attention to, I'm all ears. And then if you have any questions, I can answer any questions that you have as I'm getting acclimated to the ordinance as quickly as I'm able. Sure.
I'm sorry.
Have any questions? He has taken the place,
We're talking about the master plan. Oh, okay.
talking about the zoning ordinance.
Oh,
Right, just the zone, yeah, the zoning ordinance.
okay, so I guess my only question would be, is that he's working with Paul? Or, oh,
Paul is no longer with McKenna.
okay, so Paul is,
Right.
he's the replacement. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're just
I'm
making
the
sure.
new Paul.
Okay, I knew Paul.
Yeah, I know.
So we're just making sure, though, that the zoning and everything is in correspondence with the master plan as we grow and put forth any type of developments. Okay. Thank you, replacement Paul.
Yes, you're welcome. Nice to meet you.
Here we have to vote on just simply updating the fact that there's been a personnel change.
And what was your name again?
My name is Brad Meisner, and I'll leave my business card with you all, so you have my contact information as well. Sure, sure.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
At this time, we'll move on to our monthly average report of the members. All of the members should have a copy of the attendance report.
Oh. Attendance. For this committee meeting?
Well, this is the report for the last 12 months.
Oh, that's this. Oh, thank you.
As I indicated at our last meeting, that we would, as a group, discuss any of the attendance requirements that we feel that we need to review. So at this time, if you have no questions about it, I'd like to mention that there were three applicants today. Commissioner Henry, Commissioner Hensel, and Commissioner Amabel. Okay, at this time, we move on to item number 9, which would be commission comments. Before we adjourn, do you all have any comments that you'd like to make?
And it's not so much as a comment, but I think it's a question. Mr. Little, didn't you send us information about the new guy who's replacing, what's his name?
Yes, I did send some information back to
Okay.
My only comment is I want to thank everyone for everything that they're doing to improve the city of Benton Harbor. And let's just keep the growth going. And thank you all.
I'd like to thank you all for the excellent. This is one of the best site plans I've seen. Thank you.
Kathy did it.
You made our job a lot easier.
Thanks.
And, city manager,
I'd like to just plant an idea to think about in terms of something new and vision. Think about a giant water park. Those kids drag kids for drag their parents across 3 and 4 states to get to water park.
That's true. Thank you.
okay, if there are no more comments from the commission. Motion by Commissioner Adams. Support.
Oh, it could be over. No, it shouldn't be, because we need to think about how to recycle these. Yeah.
I think the commissioner should take home as part of their time on the board on what they achieved.
Look, we have emails.
Commissioner Adams.
Yes.
Commissioner Archibald. Commissioner Marshall. Manager Little. Chairman Reed. Motion carried.
I think Commissioner Henry had mentioned it several times, and I think we do have a shredder that comes through that,
We can take them.
yeah.
We have recycle.
Well, I knew the commissioner